The French cloud provider, OVHcloud, announced it's creating a dedicated defense vertical after several European defense ministries approached the company in Q2 of this year. The requirements are very specific: AI-augmented command systems, drone orchestration, and communications interoperability across armed forces and with NATO. But here's the critical detail here. European defense ministries specified, and I'm quoting, strict requirements on technological independence from non-European providers. Non-European providers in this context means essentially Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud, the three American companies that currently dominate global cloud computing and host much of Europe's digital infrastructure. OVHcloud has long positioned strategic autonomy as a differentiator against US peers, and now European militaries are explicitly demanding that American companies be excluded from their most sensitive systems. When multiple European defense ministries tell a French cloud provider they need military-grade infrastructure with zero American involvement, that is not just a procurement decision, that is a declaration of digital independence, and it signals that Europe's armed forces no longer trust the United States with access to their command and control systems, drone operations, or NATO communications. First, let's establish what cloud computing actually does for militaries and why European defense ministries are insisting on European-only providers. Cloud computing is essentially renting somebody else's computers instead of owning your own. Instead of building massive data centers filled with servers, you pay Amazon, Microsoft, or Google to store your data and run your software on their servers. For most businesses, this is cheaper and more flexible than maintaining their own infrastructure, so it makes sense. But for militaries, cloud computing enables capabilities that would be impossible with traditional IT infrastructure. AI-augmented command systems analyze battlefield data in real time and suggest tactical decisions. Drone orchestration manages fleets of unmanned vehicles simultaneously, coordinating surveillance, logistics, or strike missions across hundreds of drones. Communications interoperability allows different military branches and NATO allies to share secure information instantly. All of that requires enormous computing power, instant scalability, and zero downtime. Cloud infrastructure provides that. But here's the problem: if your military's command systems run on Amazon's cloud, Amazon can see what you're doing. Exactly. They might not actively monitor your operations, but they have physical access to the servers, they control the software layer, and they're subject to US law, which means the US government can compel them to provide data at will. European defense ministries have decided that this is unacceptable, so they went to OVHcloud and basically said, build us an alternative and make sure no American companies are involved. If understanding how technical dependencies create strategic vulnerabilities sounds useful, check out my book Awake: The Practice of Critical Thinking in an Age of Self-Lies, available in ebook and audiobook. Subscribers get 10% off, and you can grab the first chapter for free in the description links below. Now, OVHcloud's solution, because this isn't just about replacing American cloud providers, it's more about building sovereign infrastructure that European militaries control end-to-end. OVHcloud is building its defense vertical on Secnum Cloud products. Secnum Cloud is a French government certification for cloud services handling sensitive data. It's the European equivalent of the US government's FedRAMP certification, but stricter. To get Secnum Cloud certification, cloud providers must prove their infrastructure is physically located in Europe, operated by European staff, and immune to extraterritorial legal demands, meaning the US government can't force them to hand over data. OVHcloud also offers a distributed cloud model called OPCP, which allows a full-scale cloud platform to be installed directly in the customer's data centers. For militaries, this means accessing cutting-edge AI and drone orchestration tools without data ever leaving their physical facilities, which is even better. The servers sit inside military bases, no data flows to external providers, no American companies have visibility into operations. OVHcloud is also hiring aggressively, recruiting experts from European armed forces and the defense industry. These dedicated teams will need security clearances to work on projects with secret classification status. That's not typical for a tech company. That's essentially OVHcloud embedding military personnel directly into product development to ensure the technology meets operational requirements European militaries will not compromise on. OVHcloud is deploying sales organizations in each European country to cooperate with each defense ministry individually. This isn't a one-size-fits-all cloud service. It's more a customized infrastructure negotiated country by country, ministry by ministry, to ensure each European military gets exactly what it needs without touching American systems. Check the video on France nationalizing both supercomputers, by the way. European governments are systematically securing critical tech infrastructure against American control. And now for the implications, because European defense ministries choosing a French cloud provider over AWS or Azure isn't just a vendor swap, it is a vote of no confidence in American reliability. Amazon Web Services is the largest cloud provider in the world. Microsoft Azure is the second, Google Cloud is the third. Together, they control over 60% of global cloud infrastructure. European governments and companies currently rely heavily on these American platforms because they're mature, reliable, and ubiquitous. But relying on American cloud providers creates a single point of failure: US government policy. If Washington decides to cut off access, freeze data, or demand information, American companies must comply. The U.S. Cloud Act, passed in 2018, explicitly allows U.S. authorities to compel any American tech company to hand over data stored anywhere in the world, even if that data is stored on servers physically located in Europe and owned by European customers. European militaries looked at that legal framework and basically concluded we can't build our command and control systems, drone operations, and NATO communications on infrastructure subject to US government demands. One European defense analyst stated very plainly, and I'm quoting here, "Control over infrastructure is becoming the same as strategic autonomy." That is the shift here. Strategic autonomy used to mean domestic weapons production and independent foreign policy. Now it means owning the digital infrastructure that runs your military, because if someone else controls the servers, they control your operations. And this decision ripples beyond defense too. If European militaries don't trust American cloud providers with sensitive data, why would European intelligence agencies? Why would European governments running critical infrastructure? Why would European companies handling proprietary technology? Watch the video on the US private credit crisis that could actually trigger the next recession, by the way, because tech sovereignty matters more when financial systems become unreliable like this. OVHcloud reported 555 million euros in revenue for the 6 months ending February 2026, which is a 5.5% organic growth rate driven by increased spending from existing clients. That is modest compared to Amazon or Microsoft, sure, but OVHcloud isn't trying to compete globally. It is positioning itself as Europe's sovereign alternative, the provider European institutions choose when American infrastructure is unacceptable. OVHcloud operates hundreds of thousands of servers in dozens of data centers worldwide, all rooted in European values of privacy, security, and openness. That phrasing, European values, is very deliberate, I think. It frames American cloud providers as incompatible with European priorities, even when the technology is functionally similar. I think by 2027, I would expect at least 3 more European governments to announce they're migrating sensitive systems from AWS or Azure to European cloud providers. The defense sector is leading, but other sectors will likely follow. Once militaries declare American cloud infrastructure unacceptable for national security, regulatory pressure builds to apply the same logic to healthcare data, financial systems, and government services. The US will probably struggle to respond to this. American tech companies cannot force European governments to use their services. Offering better pricing or features won't overcome sovereignty concerns, of course. If European militaries have decided American infrastructure is a strategic vulnerability, cheaper storage will not really change that calculation. And American political pressure risks accelerating the decoupling Washington wants to prevent. The long-term consequences is essentially fragmentation of the global cloud market. For the past 15 years, cloud computing has been dominated by American companies, providing a universal platform accessible worldwide. That universality appears to be ending now. Europe is building parallel infrastructure designed explicitly to exclude American providers. China already operates its own sovereign cloud ecosystem. Other regions will probably follow. By 2028, I would expect OVHcloud to announce at least one major NATO joint operation running entirely on European cloud infrastructure with zero American provider involvement. That announcement will probably be framed as proof that Europe can defend itself digitally without relying on the US at all. Whether the systems perform as well as AWS or Azure is secondary, the political message is what really matters here. European defense ministries choosing OVHcloud over Amazon or Microsoft is not just a technical decision here, it is more strategic realignment. When militaries responsible for defending Europe tell American cloud providers they're too risky to trust with drone orchestration and command systems, the underlying logic becomes very clear. Europe no longer believes the United States will act in European interests when those interests conflict with American priorities. OVHcloud's defense vertical is a €555 million bet that American governments will pay a premium for sovereignty over efficiency. And based on the demand from multiple defense ministries, that bet appears to be paying off. The era of European militaries trusting American companies with their most sensitive operations is over. The new era, European cloud, European control, European autonomy, is being built right now, one defense contract at a time. Watch the video on your screen, I'm going to link it in a second, about how Americans are actually twice as poor as Europeans, according to Oxford research. European defense ministries evicting AWS, the Vatican rejecting America's birthday, Spain refusing military cooperation, France nationalizing supercomputers, the Netherlands divesting from Palantir, Canada exploring EU memberships. These are not isolated events. When European armed forces tell the world's largest cloud provider they are not trusted with drone operations on battlefield AI, the message is super clear. Europe is building alternative systems designed to function without American participation. The transatlantic alliance isn't ending, it is just becoming optional. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you all on the next one.